In this video, here's what we'll cover: what we really mean by spirituality, the historical tension, and why it is easing, what the research broadly shows, where psychology and spirituality converge, practical ways to bring them together. Have you ever finished a piece of good, careful work on yourself and still felt that something was missing? The tools were helping and the symptoms were easing, and yet a quiet question remained: does any of this actually matter? For a long time, psychology treated that question as off limits. In my practice, I have come to see it very differently. So let me start with a word that trips a lot of people up: spirituality. Many people hear it and think religion, but the two are not the same. Religion involves organized belief systems, shared rituals, sacred texts, and a community built around them. Spirituality is broader and more personal. It is your sense of meaning and purpose, why you're here and what matters most. It is a feeling of connection to others, to nature, or to something larger than yourself. And it is your values, the principles that guide how you live. You can be deeply spiritual with no religious affiliation at all. You can also be religious and find the two woven tightly together. Both are valid. For many people I sit with, especially those from South Asian, indigenous, or culturally diverse backgrounds, spirituality is not a separate box. It runs through their relationships, their identity, and the way they make sense of suffering. Noticing that in the room is not just respectful, it is clinically important. For much of the last century, psychology and spirituality kept a careful distance. Freud famously dismissed religion, behaviorism pushed inner experience aside, and the field was working hard to prove itself as a rigorous science. Spirituality was often left outside the consulting room door. That began to shift in the 1980s and 1990s, as several forces came together. One was the mindfulness movement. A practice drawn from Buddhist tradition was translated into plain clinical language, and it is now one of the most researched tools we have. Another was acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which places your personal values at the center of change. It asks a simple question: what do you want your life to stand for? A third was the meaning-centered tradition, which put the search for meaning at the heart of being human. And a fourth was spiritually integrated therapy, where researchers studied how faith and meaning can support people through trauma, illness, and loss. None of this merges the two fields into one. It simply recognizes that meaning, connection, and values are real parts of human life. So what does the research actually say? I want to be balanced, because most of these findings are correlations, not guarantees. One landmark review pulled together more than 3,000 studies. It found that higher levels of spirituality and religious involvement were broadly linked with greater life satisfaction, a stronger sense of purpose, and better self-rated health. And the links were often strongest for people facing real hardship. The same body of work suggests spirituality can help buffer against depression, though the picture for anxiety is more mixed. Warm, supportive belief can ease it, while harsh, shame-based belief can make it worse. Context matters enormously. Then there is coping. Drawing on faith, meaning, or a sense of the sacred is linked with better adjustment after a crisis, while feeling abandoned or trapped by a rigid framework is linked with worse outcomes. And mindfulness remains the best evidence bridge of all, associated with lower anxiety, lower distress, and greater well-being across many trials. None of this replaces professional care, but it does suggest that meaning is a genuine dimension of health. In my practice, the overlap between psychological and spiritual concerns comes up all the time, not because I raise it, but because it is already there in what people bring. Meaning and purpose is one. The question, what is the point of all this, is both spiritual and clinical, because loss of meaning is a real feature of depression. Values is another. Naming what you most want to stand for, then noticing when fear pulls you away, sits close to what many traditions call discernment. Gratitude is a third, found across spiritual traditions and among the best evidence tools in positive psychology. Then there is connection, since loneliness is a strong predictor of poor mental health, and communities of shared meaning have always offered belonging. And finally, compassion, which sits at the heart of both self-compassion work and many contemplative paths. You do not need a therapist to begin. A few simple, Evidence-informed practices can help. Try 5 to 10 minutes a day of mindful breathing, gently returning your attention each time it wanders. Name your top few values, then ask how much of your week actually lines up with them. Each evening, write down 3 things you are grateful for, and why each one matters. Invest in community and ritual, whether a faith group, a choir, or dinners with friends. And try journaling not just to let off steam, but to make meaning. A word of care, though, integrating spirituality is never about imposing it. Good practice follows your lead. If belief is not part of your life, sessions simply focus on other evidence-based methods. If your relationship with religion is painful, we explore that gently, rather than assume it is a resource. And spiritual practice complements professional care. It does not replace it. That is the heart of how we work at Potentialz Unlimited in Bella Vista. Our team brings a holistic, multicultural lens alongside evidence-based therapy, in several languages. If meaning or spirituality matters to you, it can be a genuine resource in our work together. Nothing is imposed. You can read the full guide, or book an appointment, using the links in the description below. Before you go, here's a quick recap of what we covered. What we really mean by spirituality, the historical tension, and why it is easing. What the research broadly shows, where psychology and spirituality converge, practical ways to bring them together.